an important part of Tolkien's plot has to do with Sauron's ignorance of the Hobbits and of the Shire. In fact, this ignorance is precisely what saved Bilbo and Frodo's lives when they possessed the One Ring. And thus, the question is clear. How did ancient and powerful Sauron have no idea about an entire group of people as well as the realm which they inhabited? This week on Nick & Fantasy, let's find out precisely why Sauron knew nothing of the Shire. Let us first see the Shire's geography and society. The Hobbit realm is located far into the northwest of Middle-earth, in the territories that used to be governed by the Kingdom of Arnor. While its soil is fertile and kind to its people, the Shire's geography is obscure. Located behind the Misty Mountains and beyond Rivendell or any other notable faction, the instances that anyone would ever mention the Shire to Sauron, or that he would have a reason to know the details of this land, are very limited. Moreover, as Isildur died with the ring hundreds of miles away from the Shire at the Gladden Fields, ending up in the Anduin River where it was fished by Deagol and Smeagol, Sauron would have had no reason to search so far. The effect of the Shire's obscurity is further compounded by the society of the Hobbits itself. Hobbit civilization is inherently introverted, and trade with the other people of the world was severely limited. Trade throughout history has been the primary instrument through which civilizations have learned of and interacted with each other. Ancient China had a vague idea of Rome because of this, even though they rarely interacted directly. The same, therefore, applies to Middle-earth and their people. In fact, even the men of the West in Gondor would know very little of the halflings up north, even though the Shire itself was founded by royal decree of their northern peers. Additionally, a distinctive characteristic of Sauron is arrogance. Arrogance was the very reason he lost everything and the ring was destroyed. In a micro sense, he completely miscalculated the abilities of the Hobbits even when he learned of them. I would imagine that no one would dare to even mention such beings to him, even if some random dark servant learned of their existence centuries ago. This naturally leads me to another factor. It has been established that, fundamentally and metaphysically, the Hobbits are not a completely distinct race, as their own children of Ilúvatar. According to Tolkien himself, they must be offspring of the race of men that somehow came to be the way they were. Their true origins are completely obscure, and most of the information we have starts in the Third Age. This is important to keep in mind, as for the majority of the Third Age, Sauron recovered his strength following his defeat at the hands of the Last Alliance. It was only in the decades leading to the events of our story and the War of the Ring that Sauron had reclaimed his physical form. After all, Gollum mentions that one of his torturers had only 9 fingers. In essence, it all comes down to this. While obviously in the example I'm going to give, immortal Dark Lord necromancers don't exist in real life, hopefully, do try to imagine a real equivalent. Asking Sauron to know of the Shire and its people is like asking a medieval king, and a very arrogant one at that, to know of perhaps the most insignificant piece of land and people to ever exist, located thousands of miles away. People have difficulty knowing things like this even now, despite the technology and information we have available to us. Do not overestimate Sauron's knowledge. He is an immortal Ainur spirit, but he is obviously neither infallible nor is he all-knowing. His power is vast, but his perspective and understanding of things is rather relatable to us. After all, the final gamble of the captains of the West was to draw his forces to the Black Gate in order to give Sam and Frodo a chance to reach the mountain, a plan that succeeded. It's also worth remembering that Sauron's blindness on this point was not unique to him. The White Council itself, including Saruman, spent years quietly searching the Gladden Fields and the wider vales of Anduin for the ring, working from the same assumption that it must still lie somewhere near where Isildur fell. Saruman in fact grew so obsessed with this search that it became one of the seeds of his own private ambition, long before Gandalf ever suspected Bilbo's ring was anything more than a convenient party trick. If the most learned minds in Middle-earth, elves, wizards, and the lords of men among them, were all hunting in the wrong place for decades, it becomes a little easier to forgive Sauron for never glancing toward a forgotten patch of farmland on the other side of the mountains. Ignorance and disregard of the Shire was a shared blind spot due to its insignificance. It is a detail that the films skip entirely, but Tolkien clearly wanted these events grounded in something believably human. Even the wisest can search for decades, look in exactly the wrong place, and ignore other possibilities. Now, beyond the mere fortune of the Shire's geography, the nature of its people, and the character of Sauron, we must not forget the Rangers. These Dúnedain, as a remnant of the Northern Kingdom that preserved the royal bloodline, defended the Shire and its people without the knowledge of the Hobbits. Whatever could have threatened them, the dark beasts of the world, or those of evil heart, were repelled for years. Aragorn himself, Strider, had much experience of this himself, and his family paid dearly to fight the orcs of the north. Additionally, and I think this is because of the influence of the movies, there is a very popular misconception that the One Ring is the equivalent of some sort of GPS beacon. No, simply wearing the ring does not somehow pinpoint your location to the giant flaming eye of Barad-dûr, which is yet another invention of the movies. What could happen, as was the case in Bree, was that wielding the ring helped the already nearby Nazgûl get a better idea of where the Hobbits could be. Most notable, however, was the example of Amon Hen, the Seat of Seeing, whose special properties allowed Sauron to see Frodo when he otherwise would not have been able to. Therefore, as was the case with Gollum for centuries in his cave, Sauron could not feel him and pinpoint his location or talk to him, just like he couldn't do this to Bilbo for decades, or to Frodo without the additional factor of Amon Hen. Because of everything we have mentioned so far, the Shire remained safe and secure. However, Gandalf understood that it was difficult to maintain Sauron's ignorance. His servants were guided by Gollum's words, and once he made the connection between the magic ring, Sauron, Bilbo and Gollum, he knew that Frodo needed to get out of there immediately. He was certainly right to be concerned, considering how close the Nazgûl got to the ring. I think ultimately, the amount of luck involved in the whole situation was perfectly captured by Gandalf in The Shadows of the Past, where the Grey Wizard stated, "There was more than one power at work, Frodo. The ring was trying to get back to its master. It had slipped from Isildur's hand and betrayed him. Then, when a chance came, it caught poor Deagol and he was murdered, and after that, Gollum, and it had devoured him. It would make no further use of him. He was too small and mean, and as long as it stayed with him, he would never leave his deep pool again. So now, when its master was awake once more and sending out his dark thought from Mirkwood, it abandoned Gollum, only to be picked up by the most unlikely person imaginable, Bilbo from the Shire." This luck we talk about is ultimately a combination of very real factors, and well thought out and consistent world building that, in my opinion, has been a little obscured by the way the story is framed in our mind ever since the release of the trilogy. In actuality, the fact that Sauron did not know of the Shire not only makes sense, but it aligns every single aspect of Tolkien's writings. If you'd like to support the channel and not miss out on future videos, please consider subscribing. You can also click the link on the right to become a channel member and get early access to all of my content.